Welcome to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. I'm Matthew of castingacross.com, where I explore the quarry and culture of fly fishing. Well, I hope that wherever you are, you're having a great day as you are tuning into this week's episode 317. And this is being recorded in the first legitimate snowfall of New England in 2024. It's nothing to write home about, but it's enough for me to mention as I stare across the wintry plain that is my front yard. Well, today we're talking about three things. At least I have three on my agenda in my brain. It may turn into four. If I continue to just yammer on, I guess it could be two. But three things that you can do to improve your fly fishing game. Three things to improve your fly fishing game. Three things that you can get involved with or you can pay attention to that will yield immediate improvement in some way, shape, or form. Now, as is often the case, I don't make any promises regarding the amount of or the quality of fish that you are going to catch if you do these things. I'm not that kind of guy. Don't make those promises. But this will improve your fly fishing, I guarantee you, only because it will make you more efficient. It will make you more effective. So even if you're not catching fish, you're doing better at not catching fish, if you get what I'm saying. Well, I'll dive right into it, and that will hopefully help you understand what I'm talking about. So these are things that are simple. These things are things that don't take a lot of energy and effort, but they will yield actual results in bare minimum how you spend your time, your money, and being more confident as you anticipate getting out and fishing. So the first one is take up fly tying. Now, if you already tie flies, stay tuned. Keep paying attention because this is the kind of thing that I think you can use as you evangelize others in the reasons why you should get into fly tying. Why do most people get into fly tying? Most people get into fly tying first and foremost because they think they want to save money. Well, that's preposterous. We all know that it's just one more money trap. That's like saying, I want to get into fly fishing so I can save money, or I want to get into rod building so I can save money. No, it's just one more way to spend money, and it's actually a fun way to spend money, but that's not the greatest reason to get into fly tying. The second one is I want to have really full fly boxes. Well, again, it's easy to go to an online store, go to Fly Shop and fill up your fly box. It's going to take work to fill up your fly box. The next one is I want something to do. I want to stay busy. This one's completely legitimate. If you want one more activity, then fly tying will certainly do that, especially if you're of the mindset that you want to take the season off and you want to do something from the ice in to ice out. By all means, take up fly tying. But there's another reason why you should take up fly tying, and that's because as you learn about what goes into not just tying flies, but designing flies, and you need to understand fly design to tie flies. Whether it be why is the tail so long on a hare's ear? Why is the body the thickness that it is and comprise the materials that it is? Why does it have the wire body? Why does it have the collar? So on and so forth. What you're starting to understand about the composition of that fly is what makes it a good fly for what purposes. And so this is where things get fun. I mean, this is where when you get into fly tying, you can start to tweak things. You can start to say, I'm going to add a hot spot. I'm going to add a different colored collar. I'm going to use different color wire. I'm going to avoid using wire. I'm going to put the shell casing on. I'm not going to. What matters in a fly? And this is where I'm saying that this is one of those things. If you're not a fly tyer, or you've just kind of really fiddled with it, you haven't really committed, just taking that next step, what it can do is it can make you more aware of why flies look the way that they do. So even if you never become an expert fly tyer, even if you are not the primary hands that put flies in your box, you're still mainly buying flies from the fly shop or from some online retailer, then what you're going to be able to do as you become more aware of why flies are tied the way they are is what makes a fly good for one situation or what makes a fly good for another situation, where you can cut corners in tying flies. So I'm a huge proponent of wings on small mountain streams, completely superfluous. You could, write in and accuse me of that being the stupidest take in the world. But in my humble opinion, wings on small mountain stream flies are superfluous. I'm not going to tie them, and I catch a lot of brook trout up in the mountains without wings on my dry flies. All right. So there's a hackle, and there's a body, and there's a tail, but there's no wings, and I catch a lot of fish, and I will continue to do that because that saves me one step. It just happens to be one step I don't really enjoy doing, but that's neither here nor there, I guess. So what this means, though, is as you get into fly tying, you can say, okay, why is the hare's ear constructed the way it is, and why is the pheasant tail constructed the way it is? Of course, they're different colors, but what else do they provide? What is the difference between these two fly patterns? Or, going back to my earlier example, what would be the benefit of using a traditional dry fly or something that's a little bit more simple? What about the parachute? What is it about the design of the hackle on the parachute dry fly, the parachute Adams, versus a traditional Adams, versus a different, like an Adams Wolf? What's going into all these pieces? And I know that by simply looking at them in a catalog or holding them in your hand in a fly shop, you can start to determine and ascertain the differences between the construction of those flies. But the more you understand about why we tie flies the way they do, you understand about why we fish them, what situations that they are best utilized in. And this is the kind of thing that comes from watching fly time videos on YouTube. The tyer will say, we put this material in this way so that it will fish in this manner, or it will be easier to cast, or it will go to this place in the water column, or it will float longer in these circumstances, or it'll be more visible. And the list goes on and on and on. And again, a lot of this stuff you do pick up simply by osmosis about fishing these flies, about general fly fishing knowledge and technique and things like that. But if you are not a fly tyer, or if you again have just dabbled in fly tying, going deeper into it, again, not necessarily being the one who primarily ties all the flies that you fish or go into your fly box, not becoming an expert and somebody who's posting pictures of the flies you tie on the internet, nothing like that. Just getting more aware is going to improve your efficiency and effectiveness as you maybe tie flies, but really as you choose the flies that you choose for fishing. Again, I think fly tyers are the best resource for picking one fly over another if they look relatively the same as you are making that decision between two similar flies. So that's the first thing I would say is worth doing. The second one is one that I've talked about a lot, but I'm going to talk about it again and probably hit it from a couple of different angles, and that is focus on your casting. Focus on your casting. Now, a lot of people see casting as a pragmatic exercise. That is to say, they see it only as the means to an end. I want to catch fish. I don't want to cast. Okay, well, if that's the case, then I legitimately ask of you, why fly fishing? Why not use a spinning rod? You can, at a very much more accelerated pace, cast with accuracy with a spinning rod than you can with a fly rod. So if the goal is to catch more fish, then go get that Zebco and zip it out there, and you're going to do great. I mean, those fish absolutely love spinners. They will take them readily, maybe even faster than they would a well-stripped woolly bugger. But there's a very good chance that you're saying, I fish fly fishing because I fish in fly fishing only waters, or I want to fish in places where that is the case. And I would say, okay, great. Well, now would you want to fish better? Would you want to fish more efficiently? Would you want to fish more effectively? And this is where fly casting comes in. It is not simply a pragmatic way to get that fly to those fish. While that is indeed the primary, and I would say the only delivery mechanism, there's more to it than that. There is joy in a fly cast. I think a lot of us enjoy picking up a fly rod and feeling the way it casts, feeling the way it loads, feeling the way that we are able to manipulate a small piece of graphite or fiberglass or bamboo and make a nylon line go where we want it to go and put the fly where we want to put it. Yes, and then fighting a fish on a 9-foot rod is a lot of fun. Everything else that goes into it is great. And this is the Korean culture of fly fishing, right? I mean, this is what we're talking about. But if that is the case, if you are going to use a fly rod, then spend some time practicing your casting. Spend some time out in the grass. Go to a pond where you are not going to be overly distracted by the fishing. Go to a pond and actually here's what we'll do. I'll actually make it a good compromise here. Go to a bluegill pond, but put on a size 12, Royal Coachman or something like that. Maybe even smaller. Put on a size 12 Adams, and now make those casts and try to figure out, why does that fly flutter to the ground long after your line and leader has hit? Or why is it that you're constantly splashing? Or why is it constantly cocking to the right, cocking to the left? Diagnose those problems on that panfish pond, and you know what's going to happen? You're still going to catch a fish now and again. Why is it that when you are at 30 feet and you go to pull that fly and that line off of the water, it's constantly submerging? What do you need to change about your initial stroke backwards so that you are not constantly submerging and immersing your dry fly, so that now it's not going to float as well? These are things that you can diagnose that don't take a lot of time. If you want to get that little fishing fix throughout the week, then keep that rod in the back of the car on the way home from work, on the way, after dropping the kids off from school. Stop at that pond, make some casts. One, it's better in your fly line to cast on water. Two, you may yield a decent sized panfish. And three, you're going to get that practice. So again, I'm not anti casting your line on grass. Definitely not on gravel. Definitely not on blacktop. Don't do that. When I worked at a fly shop, we only had blacktop to do casting on, and those lines would get chewed up so fast. We would take a line that like somebody returned that we're not going to resell, and we would throw it on a practice rod and reel, and we'd take it out in the blacktop. And it was only a matter of like 2 or 3 sessions out there with somebody casting that thing would start to get chewed up at the most important part of that line, that first 6, 10, 20 feet, that head of that fly line. So don't cast on blacktop. Not only is it going to chew up your line, but even if you have a line devoted to that particular situation, then that line is going to not be a good casting tool in the very, very quick future. Again, if it's all you got, then I get it. Like I said, that was a situation I was in at the fly shop. But anyway, going back, cast on grass or cast on water. That surface tension that you get and that resistance that you get from not only casting on water, making your presentation on water, but also drawing your initial stroke into your back cast on water is integral for getting that feel and getting that timing of what that casting needs to be like. And so do that. And then I would say, if you have the time, if you have the resources, then seek out casting coaching. That could be somebody at a fly shop. That could be a guide. Guides offer that at relatively economical fees. And they can help you diagnose what is good and what is bad about your casting. This is money well spent for a few reasons. One, if you have been self-taught and there are some obvious limitations that you can acknowledge in your casting, getting somebody to come in and say, actually, this needs to change, and going hands-on with you, grabbing your elbow, grabbing your wrist, repositioning you so that you are fixing some of these bad habits, that is an integral tool that you should not overlook. And again, we're talking probably less than $100 for a couple hours. And it's going to make your casting that much better. Doing it in the off season, so that once you get that opportunity to get back on the water, you are casting where you want to cast. Because think about it, extrapolated over the course of a season or multiple seasons, how many fish are you not hitting your target at 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet, because you have limitations in your casting stroke? You're constantly falling short. You're constantly splashing at a certain distance. Once you get into a certain situation where maybe you're casting upstream, or you have some sort of obstruction on one side of you, your fly is constantly cocking to the left or the right. How do you fix that? Well, there's ways to fix it, ways that are beyond the scope of me explaining it, only in words on this podcast. But those are things that somebody can come alongside you and easily correct. There are almost no, as I think of it, there are no casting problems short of a physical limitation that you have that cannot be corrected with a little bit of time with someone who knows what they're doing. They could be a certified casting instructor. It could be just a well-seasoned guide. Whatever it may be, they can look at you, they can look at your cast, and they can help you get what you need. And so, again, this is you putting time in on the lawn or on the pond. This is you watching some casting instruction videos and then go putting those into practice. And this is you just taking the time to go out and maybe seek out some help. But it's a simple thing that will yield results. There is no one that is beyond this. I mean, professional golfers have swing coaches. Every one of us, even if we are a great angler, we catch a lot of fish, we can place that 80-foot cast in the salt on the flats with precision and stealth. There's something that we can improve upon. There are inherent limitations on any and all physical activities. And so this is something that whether you are a new angler or whether you are kind of an intermediate angler or you're an advanced angler, this is a way to take your fly fishing to the next level. And it's fun. I mean, if we're fly fishing, right? We're using probably a less efficient way of doing this whole thing about catching fish and throwing them back. So we do it because we enjoy it. So no reason to enjoy the process of enjoying it, if that makes sense. All right. So 1, get more into fly tying. 2, really take your casting more seriously. And third, the third thing is figure out your gear. Figure out your gear. Now, this one may sound monotonous, but this is the kind of thing where stuff starts to click. Okay. Now, stuff, not super clear, but this is what I mean. You can go to the fly shop and they're going to give you what you need: your rod, your reel, your line, your leader, your tippet, and you'll be fine. You can even go to the big box store and go online and buy rod, line, reel, leader, tippet, and you'll probably be okay. But just like with the previous 2 examples, you can always know more about what you're getting. You can understand more about, so for each one of those components, the taper of a fly rod. There's more that goes into it than fast, medium, slow, right? There's more that goes into line than just, well, you need a 5-weight line for your 5-weight rod. That itself might not even be the case. What is the grain weight? What is the taper? What is the length of the head? All of those things, they matter to your cast. And they matter to the price probably, but they matter to your cast. Your reel. Now, a little bit less nuance here, but again, how much does your reel? Reel is wheel shaped. So there you go. How much does your reel weigh, and how does that balance with your rod? Is that a hindrance, or is it just that you've got the perfect setup? What about not just the diameter of your leader and tippet, but the stiffness of your leader and tippet? How is that going to impact your cast, your presentation? All of those things matter. And this is it isn't rocket science. Now, certainly you can dive deep into rabbit holes of rod tapers that I only have really ventured into when I'm trying to make a comparison between 2 very, very similar rods, or when I've had custom rods built. That's when I spend a lot of time paying attention to that stuff. But by and large, there are a lot more benefits you can get to with figuring out the difference between one fly line and another, and how that is impacted by your rod and by your casting stroke. So this is a situation where it's very individualized, very personal, because the way you cast a certain rod is going to influence and impact the type of line that you can use. This is why some people say, I hate this line, how it casts. And other people say, I love this line, how it casts. I hate this rod, how it casts. I love this rod, how it casts. Why is that? It's not because, there's a bad batch or a bad run or something like that. It's that we have very different casting strokes. And it may be that the people who like it have a good or a bad stroke, and people who don't like it have a good or a bad stroke. There's so many variables here, but you have like I was talking about with casting a few weeks ago, there's so many variables you can't control. I was talking about the wrist, right? There's so many things you can't control. So once you can start to control things, you mitigate the variables that can be problematic. So you figure out, okay, I like this rod with these lines, the line they had at the fly shop, and maybe the line from my old 5-weight. Now, what is it about those lines that I like? Okay, what other lines provide similar or maybe more beneficial aspects in their construction, particularly their taper, their head length, and some other aspects? You figure that out, and now it might be that you spend $20 more. It might be that you save $20, but you can find a line that's not just the first 5-weight line off the rack. It's not the one that's on sale. It's one that is best suited for you. The same thing with figuring out leaders and tippets. I think that's one of the underappreciated aspects of casting and presentation is leader construction, utilizing a giant spool of tippet material that you have, draping off of your pack or of your vest, and utilizing 3 feet of this, 4 feet of that, and really the next level is using different types of materials, something that's stiffer for a different part of the tippet, fluorocarbon, monofilament. What are the benefits? What are the drawbacks? How can they be used together in different situations so that you can make the kinds of casts that you need? Serious midge fishermen, serious Spring Creek fishermen, serious nymphers, obviously, have very specialized leader constructions. And there's a reason for that. They're not just trying to spin their wheels and spend more money and spend more time and tie more knots. There's a reason for it. It's an ounce of prevention that goes into a pound of catching trout. Streamer fishers just use straight monofilament. At least I think that works just fine. But I'm sure they'd get some pushback from that. But that's the third thing I would say is do a little bit more of a deeper dive into the technical specs of the equipment that you're using. If you want someone to explain it to you, go to the fly shop and say, hey, can you explain to me why this series of this particular manufacturer's fly line looks like this, and this series looks like that? What's the difference between the distance and the all around? What's the difference between the Spring Creek and the all around? Can you explain that to me? I mean, they've got their little technical mumbo jumbo on the back of the box, but can you help me understand what that is? And hopefully that fly shop employee knows that. But if not, reach out to the manufacturer. I do that for research all the time, and by and large, they get back to me with pretty clear, concise information. So anyway, those are 3 things that don't take a lot of effort. They could potentially be little excursuses or tangents that you go down and become a little bit of consuming for a while, but they don't necessarily require a lot of work, and they will pay off. Again, not in the amount of fish that you catch. I'm not going to make that guarantee, but in the efficiency and the effectiveness of your preparation, planning, and time on the water. So if you have something else that falls in this category, I'd love to hear it. Matthew@castingacross.com. Let me know if there's something that you've done that has been a small step, but it has really helped your fly fishing, or it's made it easier, or it's made kind of like the light bulb come on. That'd be another way to frame these 3 things. They're like light bulb moments. Like, oh, now I get why I choose this fly. Oh, now I get why I couldn't cast at this distance. Oh, now I get why I've enjoyed this line so much more than that line as I've cast. So those are just some more things for you to think about. I'd love to hear your take on it. This week on castingacross.com, first article is called Curating Your Own Fly Fishing Library. If you've been around Casting Across for any length of time, you know that I like fly fishing books. And I've had the opportunity recently, as we have moved and we've had some new bookshelves built, to kind of go through my entire fly fishing library. I've gotten rid of some stuff, but I've held on to the vast majority of it. And I know that this would be a great thing for people who are hard to shop for, or who feel like they have everything, or maybe are into reading but recently into fly fishing. A great thing to do is, how do you get that fly fishing library going? How do you fill out a bookshelf? Don't just go buy the first 20 things you see. Don't get on Amazon and buy the first 10 results. But I give some hints and tips as to how you might go about rounding out your fly fishing library, or beginning your fly fishing library, and curating your own fly fishing library. And of course, I will throw a plug-in for the Casting Across Fly Fishing Library, which you can find on the top of the website, and that takes you to, I don't know, over 75 book reviews that you can find in Casting Across. Wednesday's article is called The Amateur, and the amateur is, I learned recently, and again, this is a linguistic fallacy to say that the root of a word is completely imbued into the meaning of that word. So like amateur means one who loves in French. Obviously, that word has taken on a different meaning today in English. But at the same time, I like that root, and I like what that imbues into the word, which is that someone who does it because they love it. And so I talk about how years ago I was called an amateur because I recommended or even just mentioned taking the winter off in fly fishing, which, if you know me, you know that I fish through the winter. So I was just simply saying that's an option for people. And a couple people, they were the gatekeepers of the fly fishing community, and they came at me. And so this is a bit of a reflection on that, because I had a conversation with somebody about how I really do, waterfowl this time of year now. Not that I don't fish, but waterfowling has become more of my focus just because it's a very, very short season for a couple of months out of the year. Again, not to the exclusion of fly fishing, but it takes a more prominent role in some of these weeks in October and November and December. So was just a conversation we were having about how it's okay. That's fine. I don't lose any of my fly fishing credibility. If anything, it builds up more longing and excitement for those times when I am on the water, and then when I switch over to doing that only. So talk a little bit about that in the article called The Amateur. That got a lot of, I'm only like 24 hours out of that being posted, and a lot of people have read that, which is awesome. I always love to see that. This week's recommendation on the podcast is a book that I've certainly talked about before, and a lot of these books I mentioned more than once because even though I've got almost 100 of them on the website, I like to mention the good ones a lot. And this is a book that my kids actually recently discovered as I was going through stuff. It's called A Curtis Creek Manifesto, a fully illustrated guide to the strategy, finesse, tactics, and paraphernalia of fly fishing. So this is a graphic novel style book that gives you really a rundown of everything and anything fly fishing related. So it's just a good synopsis. I would say it's one of the best synopsis of fly fishing that you can get, and it's done in an illustrated way. Arrows pointing stuff. Here's the thing: it's almost, my goodness, it's almost 50 years old. That's pretty crazy, and it's only 48 pages. So for $12, you could do a whole lot worse than picking up Curtis Creek Manifesto if you want to teach people fly fishing or if you are learning fly fishing. This is a great gift. It's a stocking stuffer, for goodness sake, for $12. But check out Curtis Creek Manifesto. I will put a link to that book on the show notes for this podcast page over at castingacross.com. Thanks for listening to the Casting Across Fly Fishing Podcast. Please subscribe in your favorite podcast app and then rate the podcast in Spotify and iTunes. Then head over to castingacross.com for 3 posts a week on the people, places, and things that go into the pursuit of fish.